the greatest piece of advice that we ever got is a story that TJ tells so wonderfully. We were at a radio convention in Dallas. And I don't know, do any of you know who Kidd Kraddick is?
You should.
Yeah.
Write that one down too. Kidd Kraddick.
The most...
K-R-A-D-I-C-K.
If you've ever seen the TV show Dish Nation, he was involved in creating that. He is the most successful female-oriented morning show possibly in the history of American radio. He's now on something like 70 top 40 stations around the country. He's one of the most truly successful radio syndication stories ever. But he used to hold this convention every year. Long before he was syndicated, he was in Dallas. We were in Alexandria, Louisiana at the time. And between sessions, everybody's standing outside smoking. Well, I didn't smoke. I was just standing outside because that's where all the people seemed to be, and I have a little notepad and wanted to ask questions.
And so we got him off to the side because he's a real intense kind of hyper guy, and he's always thinking, and he's not only a great talent, he's also a great business-minded person. I mean, he started a little company when he was out of work, a bit-sharing network way before anybody really had the internet. It's called Bitboard, and all of these shows would pay a subscription fee to share ideas with each other, and he created that and ended up selling it to premier radio networks for millions of dollars. And he's also built his syndication of a business that way. But he's walking around out there in this little patio thing, this little balcony, and he's smoking, and he's talking to everybody. And he's Mr. Personality, and everybody wants to talk to him and all. And we're the peons there with our notebooks. And we said, "Hey, Kidd, can we ask you one quick question?" He goes, "Sure." Said, we should be playing more games on the radio where we give things away, not necessarily battle of the sexes, but that kind of thing where we should be playing more games, but we're not good at it. We're not good at playing games with listeners on the radio. And he goes, "Don't do games." Okay, that makes sense. We don't have to do games with this contestant against this contestant and, "Oh, well, she's got you on that one, Bob. Ooh, good girl." We just, that's too, I don't want to say staged, but it's too planned to do this and this and this. Now, we do that sometimes, but it has to be something that we believe in, that we think is funny to begin with. Not just because we're supposed to play games because everybody else is doing it. Always stay true when you find who you are on the radio and you get your character as in what's in your heart and your personality. Don't fake it. Don't become a fake person. But always stay true to what it is that the listeners listen to you for. All right? They don't listen to us thinking that we're going to have some guy trying to talk his wife into messing around with him before work on the radio. They don't expect that from us. They expect us to be lighthearted and funny and like they're carpooling to work with their old high school friends. So don't let anybody else take you in a direction that you know you don't need to go. There was an instance one time where this thing was going around. It was popular, the blind weddings, where you would take two strangers and make them, they would get married, and then they would win a trip to some island or something for a honeymoon, and then they would get a divorce after the trip was over. And that's what everybody was doing, and people were having huge success with it on the radio. So we did it. We got the two people willing to come in and do it. And when they came in the night before we were going to do the ceremony on the air the next morning, we looked at each other after they left and said, "This doesn't feel right. This is not who we are. We don't look at marriage as something that you just throw away. Our marriages are, at the time, were more important than that. Now they're not so much."
This was like 15, 16 years ago, so now
it's gotten old. I don't even want to discuss it, but so we, growing up as we have been raised properly and with morals that go in that direction, we said, well, we can't do this. But the listeners were expecting it, we thought, for the next morning. What are we going to do? Well, all we can do is be honest.
Well, the golden radio rule is, once you tell them you're going to do something, you've got to do it, because you've promised them something.
And so we went on the next morning and said, we know this is the time that we told you we would be having the ceremony of the two strangers getting married, but we called it off and explained why. The phone exploded with people calling, all of them. Thank goodness. That didn't sound like the nice guys I listened to on the radio. So they were expecting us to come on and do something out of what our true nature is. And that's the bond that you build with them. Whenever there's a tragedy, like Hurricane Katrina or 9/11, those types of things, we are there. And that's the best thing about our job, is that we can say at a moment's notice, someone needs our help, let's do it. And we take up money, we stay on the air around the clock until we get trucks filled with supplies and all of this stuff. When 9/11 happened, we were on the air that morning, and it happened during our show. The planes crashing into the World Trade Center for everybody to see on TV. And we went off the air, and the station went to a national news feed from CBS in New York. And it ran and ran, and the whole time it's running, we're figuring out what we're going to do, because we're not just going to let, a strange newscast be going and be the information that our listeners are getting. So we decided that we're going to come back on the radio at 2 o'clock that afternoon and stay on until we had collected this money or whatever we needed to do. But we knew we were going back on the radio. So 2 o'clock hits, and we come on and say, all right, this is a little different. We're Ace and TJ, in case you don't listen in the mornings. We're on in the mornings, and this and the other. Calls and emails immediately started coming going. I wondered when y'all were coming back. We're known as the show that likes to help people. Y'all like to help people.